so nice. You even have somebody dressed up as Anne. She doesn't work here. I've never seen her. She's just really into it, I guess. I walked in and the lady said, look, here comes Diana now. The woman at the birthplace, she knows everything. Everything. It's her and her cat. Brian told me to do this, so it's his fault. We did some damage and it was worse than I feared. Hello, we are back from PEI. I've got the sweatshirt on. I became 90% lobster roll while I was over there. I debated sitting down and filming a conclusion clip because I like the idea of kind of just ending with the trip and ending it there, but being I read all the books before I went and I didn't finish Rilla until I was literally on the ferry to PEI. I wanted to wrap up Rilla a little bit. I want to properly go over all the great books that I got. We have been back about a week now. The transition back has not been as terrible as I feared. I do miss it. I do miss it a lot. I guess we can start with a little sneak peek. I've got my new Anne mug. Honestly, this is really the only merch that I got. I was not overly impressed with the merch at the Green Gables store at the museum. We did not go to the store that was in Charlottetown. At that point, I was at my souvenir limit. The lobster sweater put me over the edge. This is my cute little mug, and I picked it up because it has the quote, "I'm so glad to live in a world that has Octobers." But as you can see, it has more quotes from the book there. It has this cute little aesthetic digitized drawing of Anne on it, and then obviously the quotes on the other side, and the insides. Let's start with Rilla. Before I left, I did update the vlog that I had started this. When we left, I was only 100 pages in, maybe a little more. I had 150 pages left. That's what it was. So I took this along and was reading like a maniac on the plane. I expected I'd finish while we were over there, but didn't expect to finish before we got to PEI. And we were in line in our car to get on the ferry. I was like, I gotta do it. I gotta finish Rilla. Like, we can't get to PEI if I haven't finished this book. I got on the ferry and I had like 1 or 2 chapters left. So it's me on the deck finishing Rilla, and it was great. It was great. Didn't usurp Anne of Ingleside as my favorite. I think just because Anne is the main character in that one. This one, again, doesn't have as much Anne, but unlike some of the other ones that don't have as much Anne, I think it does a really good job of following one main character, and I think Montgomery's stronger at that versus Rainbow Valley. You have the Meredith children as well as the Blythe children, and you end up having 10 main characters. How many is it? Anne has 6 kids. Rilla's still really young, so she's not even really a main character in that book. And then the Merediths have the 5 kids, I believe. So you get 10 main characters. There's a lot going on. And I think this comes in after, and well, it has to come in after the first one as well. I don't know if I can really do a tier ranking. Anne of Ingleside is definitely my favorite, and the first one, just because the first one is so iconic, and the first 3 really still encapsulate Anne, encapsulate her story. And Anne of Windy Polars, unfortunately, Anne's House of Dreams, and then Rainbow Valley, those 3 don't hit as hard for me, but I will say I think you need to read Rainbow Valley to fully appreciate this book. I think the only one that you could fully skip if you wanted to is Anne of Windy Polars. I don't know if people say you can skip Anne of Ingleside, but if they say that, you definitely shouldn't. It's really good. It started and I was sad. I've already talked about this, but this is a sad book. It's very heavy, it's darker in tone, and Rilla really grows up in this novel, and you see what it was like growing up during the war and the parents that had to watch their children go to war. I also didn't realize that the First World War was so impactful on Canada and Canadian history in particular. That wasn't that long ago, and Canada was still under the British Crown. So a lot of the language in this book and the language surrounding the museums in Canada are talking about the soldiers who volunteered to go, who were very brave, and they were very brave, and they did volunteer, but they also had to go because when Britain declared war as a sovereign, they had to go. And I didn't know that, which is incredibly, incredibly sad. And it wasn't until the 1920s or the 1930s, really like post World War I into World War II, that Canada was recognized as its own country, separate from Great Britain. Spoil it. I don't think I can say too much more about this without spoiling it, because there's a major event that happens. Yeah, there's a major event that happens that is very sad and really impacts this novel, and it still ends on a positive, more upbeat tone. So I'll get into what I'm excited to read later and learn more about the thoughts. So next I want to talk about the books I got. We went to 3 Anish locations on the island, on the property, besides going to Summerside and Charlottetown, and Montgomery went to college in Halifax, but the 3 main Anne attractions where it's touristy, there's stuff to do. We went to the Green Gables house. So cool, so cool. I will say I liked the house, but that wasn't the part I was most excited for. I was most excited for the walking, the haunted woods, Lover's Lane. Well, I guess okay, so there's more than 3. So you have the Green Gables Heritage Center, and that includes the Haunted Wood and Lover's Lane. The part I was forgetting about, so there's where Montgomery's buried. She picked out her gravesite. She wanted to be buried in Cavendish. She is originally from Cavendish. I wasn't born there, we'll get to that, but from Cavendish, and that's where her relative's house that she based Green Gables off of is located, and where she grew up with her grandparents. So the Green Gables house is on the property of the house that she based Green Gables off, and then you can walk through the Haunted Woods, and her school is not still there, but where the school used to be, through there, there's the cemetery where her grave is, and then they have built this beautiful park, which I loved, and they have her statue, but they also have all these little cat statues. Ever since I started law school, statues and statutes, everything's a statute now. You can drive, but you can also walk to her Cavendish home, and we walked. Would 100% recommend if you are able. If not, it's a short drive. We walked over to her home. I liked seeing her Cavendish home and learning more about her better than the Green Gables home, and only the real fans are at the Cavendish home, let's be real. Property is still owned by the McNeil family, which is cool, and the Cavendish home has a really, really great, it's a souvenir shop, but it's really a bookshop, I would say, and they carry a lot of her works, and I felt like it was very reasonably priced too. I was speaking with the wonderful lady who worked there. There were 2 ladies who worked there, and one of them gave a really sweet presentation about the house, how it was the post office. She showed us all these little like items that had been in the post office. Very cool. I was talking to her and she said that the family likes to keep the books priced reasonably. I mean, I'm sure they're still making a profit and they charge a little bit to get into, but overall I found the fees very reasonable. They really just want people to be able to afford to own a work of hers, to be able to read that. They don't want those barriers, which I thought was awesome. Cavendish Home was the first place that we did damage. I picked up 5 books there. Okay, it must have been only 4. It's only 4. See, it wasn't even that bad. Okay, the first one I got, I know I said I was never gonna read this, but we got it. It matches my other covers. That was the primary motivator. We got Chronicles of Avonlea by L.M. Montgomery. This is the one that slots in between books 2 and 3. And if you, this is like the side story that they reference in 3. I was thinking about starting this one while I was on the island and I just ended up starting something else. We'll get into that. But this is the first one I picked up. I didn't see further Chronicles anywhere. So if someone can tell me how I can get my hands on a copy, let me know. And then what's really cool is all of these places have book stamps. It says, site of Lucy Maud Montgomery's Cavendish Home. And it's her signature. A little cat. So cute. I don't know when I'll get to this one. I think maybe it'll be a next summer sort of activity, but that's the first one I picked up. I got my second copy of Anne that I own. I need to get a 3rd copy so that I can annotate it properly. It's a reproduction of the first printing of Anne of Green Gables. So this is the like picture that they had everywhere. I also got this one stamped. I love how they did this. There's the house again, but they put it over her name. Like she signed it over her name. I love that. I love that they did that. If you remember, I ordered from Carolyn Marie Reed's the greatest Anne merch ever. It's an author portrait of L.M. Montgomery over the title page of Anne of Green Gables, the original title page. So these boxes and the way that it has that's what's on that picture. And then the other side is the first page of the story. This one's also illustrated. I didn't know the original one came illustrated, or maybe they added these. I don't know. It's a reproduction. But there's Anne and Diana. Oh, here's one. Oh, it's Anne walking on the precipice. Also, Ryan told me he started the audiobook. He likes to listen to fiction on audiobook, but he started it and he is loving it. He said Anne is my favorite fictional character ever. I will say, so I dressed up. I had my whole outfit planned out. I dyed my hair red a little bit. It's like really faded, but that's okay. I wanted it to look natural and not like I need to redo this immediately. At the Green Gables Heritage Center, so we were there taking pictures first, and then we walked over to the Cavendish Home, and then we went back. One of the workers there told me, well, that's so nice. You even have somebody dressed up as Anne. She's like, were you here about an hour ago? It's like, no. She was like, she doesn't work here. I've never seen her. She's just really into it, I guess. Everyone there was so sweet and so friendly too. There were people that were back after they had been there 50 years ago, which was so cool. And not a lot of kids there, which is unsurprising because school's back in session, but there was one little girl there and she had the braids. She'd obviously read the book and she was super cute. She wasn't that little. She was probably like 10, 11, but she was really having a good time. And like, it was so cool to see her interacting with the people that have loved this story for like 50 years. The next one that I picked up is the original manuscript of The Blue Castle. I've actually never read this one, but I am now listening to the audiobook. I'm gonna level with you. I can tell already that it is not as good as Anne, and I'm not gonna love it as much. It's growing on me a bit more. I do like the audiobook narrator. Audiobook narrator is good, and I like the comments on fantasy and using that to escape your reality, which is a common theme in Maud's work. I'm not a big listy person, so a recent chapter I just listened to, Lindsay's at a family gathering with the rest of the Sterling and family clan, and she sort of goes around the table and describes each person. And then there was another chapter where she sort of like looks back on her life, and it's very chronological, and it felt very like listy and read very listy to me. But now we're getting more properly into the story and I'm liking it a bit better. But I figured that I would listen to it, read it first, because this would just be hard to read. It's hard to look at the original manuscript if you haven't first read everything. Last one I picked up, The Alpine Path, a short memoir she wrote early in her career. I didn't know this existed, but there were quotes from it everywhere, all over Green Gables, so I wanted to get this one and check that out. I actually went back and got 2 more. I got my friend's having a baby. I'm so excited. I got Baby's first edition of Anne of Green Gables. Ryan's like, why don't you get a like child version of the book for the, I'm like, no, we're getting the whole thing. And then I got for her the Alpine Path, so we have matching copies. Be sweet for her to have, and it has the stamps from the Cavendish home in it as well. Birthplace House also had books there. I'd done most of my shopping at the other one. I'm gonna talk about the book I got there last, actually. The nicest lady worked there. I walked in and my outfit, I was going for Anne, but with the blue, it did end up being more Diana coded, especially because in the movies, Diana is always wearing blue with the dark hair. And I got my little bow that matched my dress, that matches the sweater. That was like my thing for the trip, wearing a bow. I walked in and the lady said, look, here comes Diana now. And she was great. I don't know if she owns the house, or I don't know who she is. I don't know where she came from. I don't know anything about her, but she knows Anne. She's the Anne expert. If you want to talk to the Anne expert, go to the Birthplace. Maud was born in Clifton. It is now New London, and the house is still there. It's a little fee to get in, nothing super crazy. I really did like the Birthplace. The highlight of the Birthplace was definitely talking with that woman who worked there. She was the only person I talked to the whole time I was there that had read all of Anne and then some. It was really cool because I got to talk to her about books 1 through 8, and she's read more than me. I haven't even read anything, but I got to talk to her about Rilla. I got to talk to her about Rainbow Valley, and not a lot of people have read those books. Most people read like the first 3 and then they don't read the rest, which is fine. It's totally fine. It's a big commitment. They aren't always the bestest. Some of them are, quite frankly, not as good. We went to Bookmark, which my friend from one of my book clubs recommended, and I got to speak with the owner, and I'm like, yeah, you came highly recommended. And he's like, well, thank you. And we bought like 200 Canadian dollars worth of books. It's fine, it's fine. So the Blythes are quoted, and what I learned from the woman at the Birthplace, she knows everything. But what I found out from the lady at the Birthplace is that this book was published. It was published as maybe like not the Doctor and His Sweetheart, but one of those titles. So it had a different Anne title. It was published and heavily edited. So what I've already said, this came out in 2009, the full story, but it was heavily edited because of her thoughts and comments on the war. And her comments on the war already in Rilla, I guess generally it does have a positive spin in that one. but they were heavy, so I am excited. I'm curious to get to this one. This was the other one. I was toying back and forth. Like, I bought Further Chronicles. I bought Chronicles. I was like, I'm gonna read that one. And then I bought this one. I was like, I'm gonna read that one. And I didn't end up starting either of these. The bookmark is hopefully in the book waiting for me to start. I'd taken for granted the reports of several commentators that the book had been published in its entirety, minus a short introductory sketch in 1974 as the collection of short stories The Road to Yesterday. Then a colleague told me she'd read Montgomery's transcript and found that the supposedly short sketch in fact consisted of a dozen vignettes and more than 3 dozen poems, totaling another 100 pages of text. Or he very sweetly gave us one for every single book we bought. If you're in Charlottetown, check it out. Definitely, it's just downtown there on Queens Street, maybe. It's by the Cow's Ice Cream. Brian told me to do this, so it's his fault. He told me to. I got all of the journals and I've already started them, so that's why I didn't start anything else. I was busy reading the journals. I'm 250 pages into this one. They're honky, they're 400 pages, but I'm starting with volume 1. This goes from 1889 through 1910. Anne of Green Gables was published in 1908. So this goes through her early works, early poems that were getting published, and her early childhood, early life, to 2 years after Anne is published. I'm loving this. I'm having a great time. I can't tell you how comforting it is just to hear her talk, just to read what she wrote. I can't remember how many volumes they said, but they have these big, thick volumes that she wrote all of her journals in, and they have curated them into this marvelous Oxford collection of all the journals. It's edited by Mary Rubio and Elizabeth Waterston. I know I said that lady at the Birthplace knew everything, but these women are definitely Montgomery scholars and really, really know a lot. She left, my understanding is that Maud left her journals to one of her sons to decide what to do with, and he spoke with a university, he spoke with someone to get their advice, and they had suggested that he wait until most of the people that are discussed in these diaries have passed away, and it's no longer about people who are living, just to preserve their privacy. So he held on to them. He gave them to a college, and they started working on them, started editing them in the late 70s or 80s, and they came out in 92. They're edited a little bit. It's said the selected journals, so some stuff is taken out, is my understanding. Taken out to avoid repetitiveness, to help with cohesion, and there's a little bit of editing to preserve some privacy, some private matters and stuff like that. 2, 3. The real reason that I bought all of them is her and her cat. Stop. Look at that woman with her cat that's so happy. Mine are in the garage because they were having a crazy fight at 4 a.m. But I do love my cats. I do love cats. Montgomery, 1890. Michelle, 2025. And the last one. This is how it all started. It was the woman at the Birthplace home. It was the woman at the Birthplace home. So they did not have volume 1. As I've said, Anne of Ingleside is my favorite. This is the journal that she was writing when she wrote Anne of Ingleside. So since they did not have 1 and 2, she was talking about how it included when she had the birth of her first child, losing a child, and the similarities to Anne's House of Dreams necessarily appeal to me, but I'm very, very interested in the later publications of Anne of Windy Pullers and Anne of Ingleside and her relationship with the publishers. So curious. And then this also covers the period after World War I and into World War II. It's so crazy to me that Woolf and her were contemporaries. I can't believe that because obviously I read Montgomery when I was quite young, and I read Woolf, I mean, I was 17, so I guess I was still a child. I felt quite a bit older there. This journal is going to be really heavy. She went through a lot. She went through a lot. The end of her life is quite sad. And at the end here, 1940, there are no entries for 1940. 1941, oh God, such an end to life, such suffering and wretchedness. 1942, one entry, and that's the last entry. She stopped writing, which is devastating because writing was her life. It's how she processed things. It's what brought her joy. In the first one, she talks about her ambition, and she talks about writing in her journal and processing her emotions. And just to see her not writing towards the end there is really, really sad. So yeah, I won't be getting to that one for a while. Of course, this one they had an embosser, but it's got the Birthplace embossed down here. It says Ella Montgomery birthday, 150 years, 1874, 2024. So weird to read the 1897 chapter all on myself. I was born in 1997. So 100 years later, and yeah, just cool. My grandma visited Green Gables. I don't know when it would have been. Maybe she was there the same time as the lady I went, who had been there 50 years ago. I think she was a bit older, but she went on one of those tour bus things and went and saw it, and she got this magnet when she went, and now it's mine, and now it's on my fridge, and I got a little vintage Green Gables, which I just think is really cool. Thank you so much for watching. If you couldn't tell, rereading all the books, I know I had mentioned I started rereading them and didn't make it through while I was in law school, but rereading the books this summer really meant a whole lot, and I think I got to revisit a lot of what I had liked in childhood, what I still like about reading, and I think I learned a lot more about myself and who I used to be, who I am now. I'm so glad that I reread them all before I went. It was 100% worth it, and the trip could not have been better. It couldn't have been more perfect. It couldn't have been more beautiful. So thank you so much for watching. I'm sad when I finished Rilla. I was sad that Anne was over, but as you can see, I have plenty of new reading materials, and I am so glad I have all the journals, and I've been loving those. So thank you. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and if nothing else, I hope that you pick up Anne of Green Gables. It is 100% worth it, and you won't regret it.